Greetings. This is Positivologist Lynette Turner, and welcome to the Positivologist is in the house. Come on in, grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, your favorite beverage, sit in your favorite chair, and relax. And thanks so much for joining me. This is a show that focuses on living our lives from a positive perspective. So this isn't to say that we don't have bad days. We all do. We can't avoid that. But we each have the opportunity every day to decide how we're going to focus on our life and how we're going to focus on our day. And I choose to do it from a positive perspective, and I encourage everyone else to do the same. So I'm very blessed to have this show as a platform to talk with amazing people who are willing to share their expertise, their life experiences, to let us know what they've done to live a grounded and positive life. And tonight I'm super excited because a very dear friend of mine, Susan Carollo, is going to be my guest, and she's going to be talking about SRT, Spiritual Response Therapy. And you might be saying, what is that? It sounds very interesting, and it is very interesting, and it truly does have the ability to help us live happier, more grounded, more positive existence. So we're in for a triple treat tonight with Susan and all of her expertise. Susan's also one of my heroes, my sheroes, because she left the corporate world living in New Jersey, and she and her family moved to beautiful Sedona with the beautiful red rocks and the vortexes and the people and the energy. She truly followed her heart's calling, so she's a great, wonderful example for all of us. And we also share a very deep connection to the angels, and what a wonderful thing it is to have angels as a part of our everyday lives too. So I want to welcome dear Susan Carollo to the show. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Lynette. How are you, honey?
Oh, it's so good to see you. I do want to just reach through the screen and give you a big hug.
Right back at you, sis.
So, Susan, I want to start by actually turning the show over to you for a moment to just tell the viewers about yourself. What would you like people to know about you? And you're pretty amazing, so I don't want you to leave anything out. Just share a bit about Susan, and that'll be a great context for us to start having our dialogue tonight.
Ooh, okay, it's. I don't know if I've ever successfully told a short story in my life, but I'm going to try and get this concise for you. So I've been very blessed, and I've had a lot of wonderful experiences, especially since I started working with spirit, connecting with spirit. So I guess this is more about the journey and how did I get here, and from that corporate life in New York and 25 years of working in Manhattan in advertising to being blessed to do what I love every day, working with spirit in service, helping people clear their lives, clear their space, and open up the doorway to all of their positive potential, their purpose for incarnating, which is really to thrive and not survive, to love and enjoy this beautiful, wonderful human experience that we're all having. So it started with me back in 1995 when I had an angelic intervention that saved my life. I'm not one of those people that heard voices my whole life, that always was spiritual and knew and saw things. I was pretty set and very happy and very grounded in New York, born and raised, native New Yorker, worked in Manhattan in corporate, loved it, 25 years. And all of a sudden, one day, I just had a knowing. So I'm sure everyone or people listening would understand that's the clairsentience, just a knowing that I had to have a medical, exploratory medical procedure, which was sort of out of the blue and nothing that I was interested in or looking for. I had no symptoms, and but it was such a strong knowing that I did it. And I'll spare the details, but it ended up saving my life. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't listen to that knowing. And I like to be clear with people. It doesn't have to be real obvious. It's an intuition. It's a knowing. It's a guidance. It's a, I can't not do this.
And it's trusting it, yes?
And trusting it. And I was not in a space, in a place, so as I said, that I was looking or believed in anything or thought, ooh, this is something really important. It was, wow, you know, I'm really, really busy. I do not have time to take off from work. Going to the doctors, why am I asking this? And the interesting thing is, when I got to the physician and spoke to him, he clearly didn't believe in it either, because he basically said, this is crazy, there's no reason. It was exploratory surgery. He said, you don't just do exploratory surgery. And that's when I think my first channeling happened, because someone else dropped in and took over my vocal cords, looked this doctor in the eye, gave him the reason that I didn't know, gave him a reason why he could justify this procedure. And he, who first was looking at me like I was some crazy lady, just coming, looking for some ridiculous procedure, he looked me dead in the eye after whoever spoke through me, and he said, yeah, we could do that, and scheduled this surgery. And weeks later, going in for this exploratory surgery, both he and I said, why are we doing this? But we did it. And as I said, it was life-saving. I wouldn't be here today. So after that, recovering from that and coming back, spirit and the angelic realm had my attention. I still didn't quite know what it was. I still wasn't looking per se this is this big spiritual intervention. I didn't get that. I still wasn't there. But I did start going for readings, and I did start asking questions, and I did start taking classes and seeking. I was very curious. And throughout this, I became very connected with the angelic realm. As you know, Lynette and I together, learned angel speak and started writing and receiving and hearing from the angels. And through their guidance, started getting more guidance and more direction, and more gifts opened up. My clairaudience, my clairvoyance opened up. Something that I believe we all have. It's a matter of when do you open up, when do you allow it, and how do you nurture that. So I continued to open, I continued to nurture, and that is when I discovered SRT, which we're talking about tonight. So that's spiritual response therapy. So what I loved about the angels and the messages and the Reiki and all the classes that I was getting a lot of information. What I wasn't necessarily getting was how to change, so what I wanted was, I'm kind of a let's get things done kind of person. And so I want to take it to the next level and say, okay, so we know this is an issue, this is a challenge, or we know this is what the angels want us to do, or this is our guidance, but how do we do it? Or we're trying as hard as we can, this person's doing everything they can, but they can't shift it. And that's when I discovered spiritual response therapy, which goes down into more the hard wiring of the soul and freeing the limitations, the soul's limitations that we bring with us from all of our wonderful many experiences and incarnations. So then started doing this, was trained, became a practitioner, never advertised, never wanted to be a practitioner, never wanted the attention, just wanted to help my friends and family, and it was just curious and again guided and not really an option not to do it. But I started studying without any intention. Except to learn and to heal. So before I knew it, I had people even walking up to my door and saying, what do you do? I want to do it. I had a clientele that built through referral. Just people wanting sessions, because I do a session and there'd be such huge results. Then I say, I do a session, I facilitate a session between an individual and their high self and spirit, and they would see such results that they tell their friends, their family, they want sessions for the people they loved. And before I knew it, just through referral, I was so busy that I left my corporate job, and I asked Spirit, how do I do this full time? And I came to Sedona to kind of get some answers. There's a whole story there. I was called to come to Sedona, Arizona. Beautiful, wonderful, supportive space and place with the Red Rocks. And I came to Sedona, and without a plan, just because, again, total trust. And I came here, and it just flew open. Spirit just started sending me people. I connected with a spiritual retreat company called Sedona Soul Adventures, and people come from all over the world to do spiritual retreats, and I started working with them as a practitioner. And then those people go home and they tell someone, and before you knew it, I'm international and busy and clearing.
Living your life. Living the life, Susan.
Living the life. So, I know, in the past, present life, I would have needed to have a plan. In fact, when I started thinking about doing this, I had about 3 Excel sheets and figuring out when I could comfortably move and do this. And that was 2007, and if I looked at those spreadsheets now, I wouldn't be here yet, because I still had 2 more years before I could get here and do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I threw them out the window, I listened to my heart, I followed spirit, I came here, and I haven't looked back, not ever.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
So, thanks, Susan. So if someone said to you, Susan, what is SRT? How would you respond? How would you describe it?
SRT stands for Spiritual Response Therapy or Spiritual Response Technique. And it is a spiritual process. And it's a way of clearing a soul's Akashic records and using basic kinesiology. In this case, it's a pendulum way of bypassing the conscious mind and speaking directly to the person, the individual soul, and speaking directly to the individual's high self. And in this case, high self is a form of a committee. It's a high self committee, which is a group of souls serving as high self to guide us through the soul's Akashic records to see where there's blocks. What has the soul brought in from previous experiences? So I always give an example. It's sort of think about, the things that you just know. You come in with knowledge and wisdom that you just know. You come in with soul relationships, people that you meet and you say, oh, I'm just so comfortable with this person. I feel like I've known them forever, and you just get right back to the relationship. You meet people and you say, gosh, I don't feel so good about this, and you wonder why. You say, they haven't done a thing, and I'm not comfortable. Soul recognition. So, besides the fact that when we incarnate and we come in with all of that wisdom, we also come in with all the baggage, because the lifetimes weren't always great. We didn't always learn our lessons, and sometimes there was hurt, harm. The souls were younger, ignorant, created through that some false beliefs, perceptions, judgments, or created programs, and that also comes back with us. And that is not necessary, and that inhibits our expression, and that blocks us from moving forward. And that's what SRT does. SRT goes in and systematically just analyzes the records to see what are you bringing with you, what's getting in your way. And then spirit, with the soul and high self, can clear those programs.
So Susan, when you're doing a clearing, are you sort of in a trance when you're doing it, or are you?
No, you don't have to be. Anyone that practices, we all bring our own unique ways of communicating with and working with spirit. So I happen to, over the time, have developed, spirit has gifted me, activated the clairaudience, the clairvoyance, the channeling. So when I personally go in, I see the records. They pop up. I close my eyes. It looks like a desktop. I see file folders. I see the records. I hear high self speaking to me. I call high self, in this case, the spiritual IT guys, because it really is like going in and clearing records, down and dirty, going in and saying, this file doesn't belong. This is spam. The soul doesn't need this. And we go in and identify it.
Well, if you were going to, Susan, just in case someone doesn't know what an Akashic record is, how would you describe it?
The Akashic records are the records of all the soul's experiences from the moment of creation until today. So it's everything you ever experienced, what the soul's plans were, what are you coming to accomplish, but what have you experienced from the moment the soul was created until now. And when the experiences include all of the experience that we have, especially the incarnations, the physical experiential experiences. When we incarnate, we come here to learn through experience. Because when we're in spirit, we have the knowledge, but it's a little hollow without the experience. It's one thing to know, just forgive, that'll take care of it. Or, I'm not responsible for that person, so I should just let it go. It's a whole nother thing to actually be able to do that when the human emotions kick in, when you're loving someone, when you're experiencing this human experience. So we come into experience, and when we do, then everything in what gets downloaded into the records is the wisdom from the experience. Mm-hmm. If we don't get the wisdom, what gets downloaded in the form of programming are the blocks, the inhibitions, the wounds, the contracts, and all of this, the beliefs, and all of this we bring in. So if you're here now operating from a place of still vows from your religious lifetime, say for instance vows of poverty, then no matter what you do, you're going to have difficulty with money. And especially a lot of people who are now in the healing practice. In the past, we were monks, we were priests, we were nuns, we did spiritual work. And back then, we very often had vows of poverty or beliefs that spiritual work, for instance, requires sacrifice, personal, financial. And then we end up here.
A lot of people now, currently, in this lifetime, who think that if I'm being of service, if I'm helping, if I'm doing some kind of spiritual work, I'm not supposed to, be financially rewarded for it. I just have to, So I can see how
exactly,
is really helpful.
And that's why a lot of people, like I said, that's a lot of the people that I work with that are doing healing. That's the thing. They've got their practice. They're connected with spirit. They're in service, but it doesn't support them financially.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you who the ideal candidate is for SRT clearing.
It's really anybody and everybody, because it depends on what where you're blocked. So, I've worked with people with physical issues and challenges, and things can shift. I've worked with people, for instance, that have been, just a quick example, but someone who had surgery, and 6 months later, it hadn't healed, an open wound. They'd been to the Mayo Clinic, they'd done everything they could. They found their way to me just out of pure desperateness. They just, would try anything. And they had, the soul had blocks to healing. These are their programs. Blocks to healing, a desire to suffer, health abuse issues, body memories from a past life with an injury to the knee, and more. And when all of that was cleared, the woman emailed me less than a week later and said the wound was 3/4 of the way healed. And she said, "Why did I bother with the doctors?" And my response was, it wasn't that the doctors didn't do everything, it's that the healing that you sought was all delivered to your door, but because of your programs, you didn't hear the doorbell ring. We opened up the door, we brought it in, and now the soul can accept the healing.
Well, Susan, you talk about, we know, and I've been the lucky recipient of having SRT clearings, and it's amazing work. So you use the pendulum. Can you talk a bit about the different charts and everything? So when you're talking about different programs, so people get a sense of, how the pendulum works and how the charts work and how it all fits together.
Sure. So the charts are, it's a way of navigating through the records. And it's a way, I love the charts and the pendulum because for me it's a way of staying out of it, staying free of ego, and finding out exactly where we need to go. So I say that because being as I channel, being as I hear, and a lot of people do, sometimes we get there, we hear the answer before we go there, but validation, you always want to let spirit tell us, because this is really intricate, because it's getting to those roots that that are those details, the little roots that need to be cleared. And it could be really specific and something that we don't know about. So the pendulum is just a way of, as I said, getting answers. And the charts, it's about 32, 38 charts that were channeled by Robert Detzler, and that's about 30 years ago, 30 years in the making. And channeled these charts as a way of getting answers, spirit guiding, to show where do we need to go, how do we get this cleared. And it's about finding the roots and going to the roots, identifying, we do get the story, identifying what happens. First we identify the program. So some basic programs are, say, self-punishment, experience trauma.
And Susan, the pendulum tells you where to stop. So you're moving the pendulum and it stops over the correct chart?
Yes. So the first chart is called, it's chart 1, and it's kind of like a table of contents. And part of chart 1 has all of the other charts listed on it. So you always start there and say, where am I going to find them? So, I've had people come, for instance, weight loss. And someone will come and they're struggling and they just, no matter what they do, they can't release the extra weight. So, you don't just assume what the reason is. You go and I'll say, is there a reason? Because not everything's a program, but I'll say, is there a reason why they have difficulties releasing this weight? And then spirit will go, say yes, and then I'll say, what chart? And we go to the chart. So speaking of the basic programs, for instance, and we'll use weight loss as a good example, I'll go and people can have more than one program. There's 13 basic programs. You can have all 13, you can have one, you could have a couple, and then there's other programs beyond the 13 basic. So weight loss is a good example. Self-punishment. So I've had people where it'll go to self-punishment from times that they maybe were affluent and other people were starving, and they've got some issues with food because of that, or they were sexually abused. It could be trauma. They were sexually abused, and there's a lot of, we'll go into that. So the soul is looking to protect themselves from abuse. They were bullied, so they want to be bigger. That could be a benefit program, and the benefit is program would be protection. And so there's many different reasons for what we're experiencing, and it can be based in many different programs, and we have to get each and every program cleared. And once it's cleared, and when I say cleared, we identify the program, we identify what happened, but it's not the story. It's not, because of the sexual abuse, this person is doing this. We go back to that place and say, because of the sexual abuse, what is this person carrying? They're carrying guilt or shame or fear or escapism or alcoholism, whatever it might be. And then we clear the energy. So just like with the religious, with the money, not everyone who's in the healing profession that is having an issue with abundance, that could be just an identification program. This identifying with a past life, religious lifetime, where this is service, this is sacrifice. We need to, God wants us to suffer. That's how we show our love, and that's a belief.
So once you do the clearing, do people experience anything physically or spiritually, emotionally? Is there a release? I could imagine that it might depend on the person or what's cleared. People might be crying with joy. They might be laughing. I mean, it could be the whole gamut, I would imagine.
It depends on how someone processes. And there are people that in the moment, have physical experiences of the energies and the emotions coming up and then being released. The beautiful thing about this is that you don't have to relive it. You don't have to talk about it. The receiver, whoever's getting the session doesn't speak once they share what it is that they're concerned about. Spirit takes over and goes in. So I always liken it to cleaning the hard drive of your computer. If you bring your computer in And you say, it's just not working. I don't know what's going on. It's freezing up. It's doing all this. And, when it gets cleared, when you pick it up, it's suddenly working. So, I've had people where, just physically, they've had physical relief. People that, the beautiful things when I work with children and animals, because they have no idea it's being done. And
talking about children, is something appropriate for children as well?
Oh, very, very. Like I had quite a few parents will call and have children that are having issues at school. Or a real great example was someone who had night terrors and a child that couldn't sleep, night terrors through the night. We did a clearing. The child had no idea, and the mom got back to me and she said they never had a night terror again. They slept through the night, never again. There's a lot of reasons for the night terrors. They had extra souls. There were discarnates. I mean, this is a way of also clearing extra soul attachments, clearing contracts, addiction. People that I did a session with someone once, and I was called by their psychiatrist, who wanted to know what happened. And I thought I was getting in trouble from the psychiatrist. I was like, oh, I didn't, I was concerned. And the psychiatrist said, I want to know what you did with my patient. And I started with all my disclaimers. And he said, no. He said, I've been working with this person for 8 years every week, and treating them for bipolar and borderline personality disorder. He said, and I'm changing the diagnosis and I'm treating them differently now. So, and that person had extra souls. They had they had voices, they had all this. And SRT can go in and clear those extra souls and clear that out. SRT, I've done it. I've gone in, I've worked with real estate agents with houses they're trying to sell that have activity. Clears out the activity. It's all about getting the souls to the right and perfect place.
So can someone come to you and say, my husband really needs this, but he won't come. Can you clear him? Can you do that, or do you need to have permission from each individual person?
Well, in that situation, I'll say the first thing is, if you want your husband cleared, let's work with you first. Because but if someone says, but if I've worked with someone, and then they'll say, or if their spouse or someone is having issues or challenges, sometimes addictions or something, we get permission from individual's high self. We do need to get permission, not from the person consciously, but we go in, it always begins with permission. So when we start the process, there is a process of, really getting what's called prep to work. You don't just go in and jump in to someone's record. It begins by clearing the space. It begins by connecting with spirit, because spirit's doing the work. I'm not doing the work. I'm just a channel that has a tool and a technique that I'm accomplished at. So we first connect conscious connection to spirit. Very simple. I just say, and most of us just say, spirit and I are one. We work as a team. So right away, boom, spirit is on board. We're plugged in, and that's who we're working with. And then we get all the high self committee members online. Make sure they're all at the highest level of consciousness, because as you know, not all light beings are, we're all souls in evolution, even spiritual beings, and they are not all qualified or equipped to work in the Akashic records and do this work. They might have other jobs to do. So we want to make sure that we're working only with the high self committee members that are able and qualified. And then we make sure they're all at the highest level of consciousness. We make sure we're shielded, we're protected. And then we get permission from the soul. And we find out, do we have permission to work with this soul? So that husband, that child, that animal gives permission to have their records cleared. High self wants what's best for the soul. High self is usually always going to say yes and give permission. The only time only once did I get a no, and it was someone who, it was karmic. They were ready to leave. They didn't want to, it was part of their exit strategy.
They were done.
They were done, and so that's the only time. I've only had once, but otherwise the soul always says yes. But we never jump in and mess with someone's record. Everything's always with the full permission of the soul.
So Susan, we'll do this again at the end, but I want you to tell people how they can contact you or reach you if they'd like to connect with you after the show.
Sure, right now or after the show? Oh, so the best way is via email, morningsun321 at gmail.com. That's MORNINGSUN 321 at gmail.com. I don't have a website because from the moment I started doing this, it's all referral. I'm as busy as I can or would love to be. So just email. Yeah.
So you mentioned how you need to clear yourself, because I was wondering about that, because I thought if you didn't ground or clear yourself, you might take on some of the energies of the people or some of the issues that you're clearing from the people. I imagine that could happen, right, if you didn't.
Yeah, well, that's why the prep to work is so important, and that's why I love this modality, because firstly, to be able to do it, I teach it as well. I'm a teacher, and I teach, it's a basic and advanced class. Each class is 27 hours long in order to learn how to do this. And what I love about the curriculum is you clear yourself while you learn. So as you learn the 13 basic programs, you are always clearing yourself. You're learning the technique by clearing yourself. So when you come out and you are a practitioner, you're very clear. Of course, we're souls in evolution, and there's programs that lie dormant until the right and perfect time as we move forward in the incarnation, but you know how to clear yourself then. The beauty also is every time that you do a clearing, you have to be clear. In the prep to work when we start, I always check. It's part of the procedure. Anyone that does SRT checks and says, am I clear and am I prepped to work? Because you cannot do this work if you're not clear.
Right.
So it's a great modality, especially to learn and to become a practitioner, because it keeps you really, really clear.
So how often should people have clearings? Because I imagine maybe one time is enough, but there may be some people or experiences that happen that you might benefit from coming to see you more than one time. What's the sort of schedule or structure around something like that?
That absolutely depends. It varies from soul to soul depending on where we are, and also the other work that you're doing. SRT is complementary to other modalities. That's why other practitioners of other modalities love when someone has an SRT clearing first. A lot of my referrals come from other practitioners because it clears them to the other work that you're going to be doing. So how often? Once something's cleared, it's cleared. It's very rare that you're going to recreate or have to clear the same program again. And once it's cleared, though, you do ascend. You do go to the next level. And when you go to that next level, a program of the same name may come up that you need to clear, but it's only because you've ascended. So, for example, when I first started going was when I was on my path and learning, and I found an SRT practitioner, and I went to them, and they cleared me to open up to my gifts, my abilities, my clairvoyance, clairaudience. And for me, a lot of my past lives that they cleared were lifetimes where I channeled and where I channeled. And I was burned at the stake. I was institutionalized, weren't we all, right? So, I had all kinds of fears and inhibitions and vows not to channel. When they tortured us, and when we often were forced to recant, and then we had this programming not to do this anymore. So, long story short, got that all cleared, and I was fine. And then I started channeling. I started receiving angelic messages. I wasn't doing SRT yet, so I was really enjoying the luxury of being a student and developing my gifts, and really a nice juicy relationship with spirit and the angelic realm. And then those beautiful angels said to me, your luxury of being a student is over, and we need you to serve. We need you to learn how to do this. And boom, all these programs came up that were laying dormant until I actually was about to go out and start doing this. So Then I had similar experienced trauma, self-punishment, but it was for actually doing healing work, not channeling. Channeling was already covered, but for doing the healing work. Being the same stuff, it was still burned at the stake. I was a heretic, I was institutionalized, all this type of stuff. But now it was for healing. It was because I was moving to that point and was blocked to healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for a while, and then everything was going great. I had a wonderful practice, many clients, and Spirit came through and they said, we need you to teach. We want more and more people doing this. You know, we need more people receiving. And when I said, how do we pull that off? And they said, teach. And boom, all of a sudden, again, same programs came up, but they were different.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was for teaching.
Yeah.
You know, and then it was like self-punishment for the times that I taught and my students were hurt. Or, you know, I taught and something else happened, or I was betrayed. You know, all different that we all pretty much had.
Some of it, it's so heavy. You can see why you'd want to clear it and get rid of it. So after you do this work, even though you've channeled and you cleared yourself, are you exhausted or are you energized? I mean, what does it feel like?
I personally am energized, and it's interesting because I move quite quickly. I've been doing it for so long. I've done. Last time I checked, I had done about 12,000 clearings, and so I've got it flows quite easily. I've got a nice working relationship with Spirit and with the modality, and when it goes, I'm talking and it's going fast, and we move real quickly. And usually the people that I'm working with, when we're done, and they're just laying down wherever they are. You do it remotely. I do it over the phone. I do it in person. Probably 90% is over the phone, international, Skype, wherever. But I ask the people, lay down, get comfortable. You don't have to do anything once we get started. It's your soul who's speaking. It's your soul who's giving permission. And when we're done, they're exhausted. They're like, I'm exhausted, a lot of people. And they'll say, aren't you exhausted? Because they've just heard me going. And I'm like, I am energized because I'm a pure, clear channel. Spirit's just coming through using my vocal cords and my knowledge of the system. And I'm always gifted. We're all always gifted, right? When Spirit comes through us, it's not exhausting. I'm not doing it. I have nothing to do with it except facilitating. So
I would actually think it would like raise your vibration.
Oh yeah. Because you're always benefiting. You know, if you're processing, if you're bringing healing and light and love through you, you're benefiting. And we're always taken care of when we do the work.
Right.
But, you know, you had asked before, and it's an interesting question. You said, how do people feel? So I've had people that are exhausted, and I've had people that jump up and start skipping. They had such heavy energy that when it's cleared, they are light, and most people say, I feel so much lighter. Other people will say, I have such clarity of thought, because a lot of times we're hosting other souls. It's very common that we've got extra souls that are experiencing through our incarnation for a number of reasons. None of them good, but reasons that rooted in the soul's ignorance in a past life. And when they get cleared, this clarity of thought and this freeness, some of it just goes. I mean, when we first start, the first thing we do is what I call a zero-time clearing. There's a lot of work that we've all done that we have put in the garbage, and we're ready, we're done with it. But we keep kind of going back and bringing it back and revisiting it. So when I start, what I see, because I see, you know, when we get started, close my eyes, I see it. I told you that laptop that I see, it looks like it's emptying the trash on the hard drive. I'll see they've got this bulging trash can. So you know you don't want it, you know you don't need it, you deleted it, but it's still there. So it's slowing down your process. It still holds energy. It's still, it's still potential. So what we're doing is we're eliminating all the negative potential. And when we clear that, those records, they go into the dead file. They're gone. And then what we do is we always bring in the wisdom that was there. You had an experience in a past life. Something went wrong. You come in to this lifetime with programs that are blocking you. We clear those programs. You're left with the wisdom. You don't have to redo that experience. You always had the wisdom. It was just blocked.
Right.
You don't have to retake, but if you don't clear it, you do it again and again and again. So you bring in your dad, you bring in a father to learn something. You don't learn it, so you marry someone or you date, and you have the same thing. You're like, gosh, this is just like my father. I'm doing this again. Or this is the same guy I dated last time. Different face, different occupation, same role. I'm playing the same role.
You see that a lot. You see that an awful lot.
Yeah. And that's what this is really good. If you see repeating patterns in your life, in your relationships, you're always the victim. You're always the savior. You feel responsible for everybody. You're codependent. All of this is programmed. This is hardwiring. And we can get in there, spirit and high self, we can get in there and clear that hardwiring, load in, upgrade the operating system, so to speak, and put in the new software. And then you actually have a chance of, not only now that you have the potential to do it, you've got all the ingredients and the wisdom, so of course you're going to be able to move forward.
So Susan, do you have like SRT radar? Can you be like in the grocery store and encounter somebody, maybe somebody you don't even know, but you have a feeling or a sense that SRT would help them?
Well, sure. I mean, anybody, when you see the patterns, going on, or just any negative energies, I mean, anger, frustration, anything that I would say is exaggerated, like this doesn't make sense given this, there's a trigger, there's a button, this is more intense than it needs to be.
Right.
But it's I mean, basically almost everybody could really use it. Otherwise, if you're finished running all your programs, you really don't need to be experiencing anymore. We come here to run the programs, to learn through the experience, to move through the challenge. By moving through the challenge, we raise our consciousness, and then we ascend.
Oh, interesting. A little while ago you talked about clearing for animals. Can you talk about that?
Sure. That was, it's not something that SRT, if you read the books or you take the curriculum, it's in there, but it's not, there's not a lot on that. I started working with an animal communicator. An animal communicator contacted me and said, can you do this for animals? And I said, let's check it out. Let's try. So she had a client, and together we, tried with the dog. And the dog had past lives. The dog was a soul that had experience. What was interesting was not all the past lives were dog. I mean, there was past lives as domestic animals, wild animals, wolf pack, whatever. And when we went back and cleared, just like we would, what happened? Go back to the root. Why is this dog, and a dog that was antisocial and was a real issue, to the point of where they didn't think that they could maybe keep the dog in a house with other animals. And we went back and found out all these reasons why. And the woman wrote to me the next day. She said, I brought him to the dog park and it's playing with other animals. Worked with a horse. Horses are amazing to work with. Worked with a horse that people had invested. They had a lot of horses. They invested a lot of money in this horse, and they showed horses. And this woman said, the horse, the temperament, no one can ride him, no one can get near him, all kinds of issues. We did a lot of clearing on the horse, and she said, I'm going down to the barn right after this. And I said, let it integrate. She called me and she said, I went down, I pet the horse, it ate out of my hands. A week later, she let her child ride the horse. So it's if the issue is rooted in a program or a past experience, then it can be cleared. Sometimes we'll clear it, and then my recommendation will be to someone, well, now go get therapy. Now, work with someone with drug issues, alcohol issues. And they had, because of where they were, they had discordant souls, alcoholic souls attached, drinking with them, through them, pushing them, getting them, keeping them in their disease. And we cleared them. They had programs, for health abuse, which they chose to use in the form of addiction and alcoholism. They had, escapism programs, which they, so it went on and on. There's many reasons. We cleared it all. And then the person said to me, well, am I going to not drink now? And I said, well, Now, whatever program you decide, whatever path you go for your support here in the physical, you can be successful. You couldn't be successful before. So the soul is responsible for their own healing. We don't do that, but we clear the path to healing. We bring in the opportunity and all the ingredients that you need. And you can also use SRT too. Then people say, well, should I do this? Should I do that? In terms of should I go to this meeting or this doctor or this or that? And we can check, using the chart, to see the percent benefit to do it. Again, so we never tell you, I'm sure you don't either, and we don't ever tell you what to do, but we can tell you, well, Spirit says it would be beneficial for you to do that. We don't prescribe or diagnose, but we can look into things that you're doing, and
then people have their own choice whether they want to follow that guidance or not. Right.
And this is about clearing your inability to do that because of your soul's programming, because of your soul's experiences.
Right. So if let's say you have a new issue in this present life that you didn't have in the past life, can you clear issues from present lifetimes?
Absolutely. You go back to the root. So did it start in the past life? Maybe not. Maybe it started this lifetime. Right. Very often, because we've been around so long and we've had so many experiences, I'll go and we always find out when was it established. And if the answer in the chart says present life already happened, it'll say that's present life. I'll always ask, does it have past life roots? Because chances are it happened present life because of a past life. Right. Why did you choose these parents? Why did you have this experience? But as often, not as often, but definitely, it could absolutely be just present life trauma, a present life relationship, in which case we go to when was it established. Could be 8 years old, could be in the womb. A lot happens in the womb. But, when you go back to the womb, the charts also have womb and weeks old, days old, and we find out what happened. But a lot of the programming gets activated in the womb. So we go back there. But if it's present life, I've worked with people that had a present life trauma, and now they have a phobia. So this is great for allergies and phobias too. And you go back and you can find out. And I worked with someone, and it was interesting because she wasn't coming about swimming or anything like that. It was a whole other session. We went to a past life, and it was a drowning, and Spirit indicated that I needed to find out. They said, I said, can we clear it? And they said no. And when you get a no, there's a few questions that you ask. That means that you need to look deeper. One of the questions is, how old were they? And I said, do we need to know how old they were? And they said, yes, 8 years old. And this is a past life. And I said, okay, now can we clear it? And they cleared it. I don't get caught up in the stories. I actually rarely remember what's going on. But afterwards, the woman said to me, that was really fascinating. She said, because I always loved the beach. We went to the beach every summer as a kid. She said, all of a sudden, for no reason, the summer that I turned 8, I became afraid of the water and I wouldn't go in. No explanation. Nothing ever happened.
Right. And now just having that knowledge has to be such a relief just to understand. I mean, I was cringing a little bit because one of my past lives I drowned, and I remember everything like it happened yesterday because you had that clarity. But I would think for her, just the knowledge, the understanding, just is like, oh, okay, now I get it. I'm not crazy. There's a reason why.
And that's the really important thing. People get a lot of solace out of knowing it's not a character flaw. You're not weak. You can't change this if you wanted to, and because of this programming. And now that the programming's clear, you can.
Right.
And especially kids at school. I've worked with young kids and their difficulty at school. They've got an imprint of brain damage. They've got issues or challenges from past lives, verbal abuse, or a failure. And then they come here and they're in school and they can't, they've got all this. And the parents say, their IQ is this, they've got, all this stuff. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And then we clear the programming and they begin thriving.
So do you ever do, or is there ever a benefit to doing like a session with a couple together or with a family together, is there any benefit from them understanding what's going on with the other person, or is it more just a personal thing and you always do them solo?
Well, I do, yeah. You want to do it solo, everyone's got their own records. I do often bring in multiple family members all at once, and we work with them, but we always work with one soul speaking, and let the others, check their records as well and see how if they've got anything, because we're all playing roles in each other's script. So if that's why I said if a wife is saying I want to clear my husband because say he's abusive, I'm going to say, well, maybe we want to look into why you're choosing to be a victim, or so that first. Then when that's cleared, then we can look at the other person. But it's always our programming first. But what's interesting is you do want to clear people together. Sometimes, for instance, there was a couple that I worked with, and it was an intimacy issue. And what was really interesting was that what it was they had so many past lives as brother and sister, and more familial. It made them very close. It brought them together, but it also made it seem incestual to be intimate. So when we cleared that past life, you came in this lifetime with all that beautiful foundation of a relationship together, to bring it to a more deep, intimate relationship, to share a life together, to create a family together, and things opened up and changed. A young couple that was called by a minister once, and she said, I don't know what else to do. I've got these two kids, they're in love, and the night before they get married, they were going on their third attempt at getting married, and she said the bride just runs. She just cancels the night before.
Bride, like that movie.
Yeah, exactly. So I did a session with the bride, and she had so many past lives with this soul who she came to marry, where he had died on her, he had run away, he had betrayed, whatever it was, they had some bad experiences. And it's not what happened, it's that she had it's energy she had. She was afraid she was going to be abandoned, she didn't trust him, all this. And it made no sense now because they had such a beautiful relationship this lifetime.
So she was probably quite confused.
She was. She didn't understand. She said, I love him. I don't know why. I just can't do this. We cleared it, and they're married.
And they had a happy wedding.
Yeah. So, and it was just programming. But no matter what, when you have those things, no matter what you want to do, but you just can't do it. And what's holding me back? This makes no sense.
Right.
It could be programming.
This sounds like something everybody needs to know about. I mean, truly, because it can be so helpful for people. Susan, who are good candidates to be teachers of this? What are the characteristics that someone should have if they were going to teach our
Well, you need to certainly be a practitioner first. It takes a while before you can teach. You need to be a practitioner first, and there's a Spiritual Response Association in Olympia, Washington, and there's a lot of study that goes into this. But to become practitioner first. It's a prerequisite. So a candidate is anybody, really anybody. You're called. I'll start with saying you're really called. If you're going to do this work, you probably know it. You're probably, if you're listening to this now, you're going, I want to do that. You're feeling it. Mm-hmm. Because Robert, who created this, said most of us that do this, we did it in the past. We did it in past lives. It's our modality. So anybody that wants to help facilitate clearing and healing of others. And, you had asked earlier, and I think I went off on a tangent. What a surprise. You don't have to be a channel. We're all channels. Right. We all are. So in class, we learn how to use the pendulum. And people will come to class and say to me, I can't use it, I've tried. Well, we clear that. You probably have programming not to use the pendulum. And that's very easy to clear. So once we clear that, it's just a tool. And it's just a way, it's a weight on a string. And it's just a way of bypassing the conscious mind and connecting in and getting answers. And, so we get that cleared. And then anybody could do it. You really can.
Sort of
And
open
the,
way as you
and
clear.
as I say, the more you do it, you know, because my students will come and they'll say, well, I don't see like you do. I don't hear like you do. And my response is, neither did I. You know, it's like exercising a muscle.
Yeah.
And sometimes the muscle you didn't even know you had. And the more sessions I did, the more I opened up. And I really think, on one hand, the spirit wanted me doing more work, so they gave me more tools,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, you know, to really expedite it. So a session, I could do a session quite in an hour that used to take me 2 hours to do when I didn't see it. But
Right.
when I go in and I see the records, and when I go into a past life, it's like a TV screen comes on. You know, I see the past life. I see what you're wearing. I see if you were a king, a queen, you know, poor, whatever it is. Do you have to be able to see that? Absolutely not. You're just going to get the roles, the dynamics of the relationship, the energies of what happened. And that's what we need to clear. Doesn't matter what happened. It's not the story. It's the energies that you hold that are attached to it. It's the beliefs that you're holding because of it. And those are the limitations. And that's all we have to get to.
Right. So, Susan, are people? Oh, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask one more question. Do people ever come who are a little bit timid or scared or afraid because they're of what they might learn, like they're in these classes?
Sure, absolutely. And they're always very relieved to hear that they don't have to talk or participate once we get going. And then always at the end, they're like, oh my gosh, that made so much sense. You know,
Right.
and I don't ask much about your life or what's going on. You know, I just, will ask, you know, what is it that you're blocking? What is it that, you know, and then we turn over to spirit. But yeah, people can, especially if someone else sends them. But that's also why I don't have a website and I don't advertise, because I really want people to come that are called to come,
Right.
and spirit sends them,
Right.
and they usually come quite willingly.
That seems to be working just fine for you, my dear.
Yeah, yeah,
So, Susan, I
absolutely.
can't believe our hour's up. This is
I
so
know.
short. Can you tell people once again how they can contact you and reach you?
Yes, yes. So the best way is to send me an email, morningsun321@gmail.com. And then I will send back all the information about setting up a session, testimonials, so you can see results and hear how other people have experienced it. And then we just find a time that works for us both, a time that's perfect for us both. And then it's really just calling in for the session.
Well, Susan, my dear friend, you are doing a great service to people. You are truly helping to change people's lives. I know how much you helped my life, you helped Rick's life by doing SRT, so I know I speak for a lot of people, and I say you're just a gem,
Oh, thank you,
and we're all
honey.
lucky to know you, and I'm so excited to know you. I can't wait to see you again in person. Um, I'm sending big hugs from across the miles, and all my love to you. And thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm sure everybody who watches it is going to be, their life is going to be greatly enhanced. And I wouldn't be surprised if you heard from some of
Well, thank you,
them.
honey. Thank you so much. Thanks for letting me share. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it, and I love you.
I love you too. My pleasure.
Okay, bye,
So,
honey.
everybody, I want to thank you once again for joining me on the Positivologist is in the house. Remember, it's all about bliss. BLISS. Believe life is something special, because it is, and so are you. You can connect with me on my website at www.positivebliss.com, and I encourage you to take a walk in the landscape of positivity, because I'm sure you're going to love what you see there. Until the next time, I'll see you right here on the Positivologist is in the house. Many blessings and namaste.
Are we off? We're off.